Alicia Daniels arrived at the airport dressed in a vibrant African print blazer, polished boots, and her natural hair styled proudly. She carried a military-issued backpack, not just out of habit, but as a quiet symbol of the service she had given her country. Her strides were confident, but even before reaching the gate, the stares had started. Some were confused, others dismissive. She was used to it. Years in the military, followed by a tech career in a predominantly white male-dominated field, had taught her how to move through uncomfortable spaces without shrinking. At the boarding gate, the airline staff gave her a cursory glance, then asked to check her ID twice. She complied without complaint. As they scanned her first-class boarding pass, she heard a woman behind her say, "That's not the line for coach." Alicia didn't bother responding. She had dealt with these subtle attacks her entire life, in boardrooms, banks, conferences, and yes, even while in uniform. As she stepped into the plane and moved to seat 1A, the comments followed like flies. A businessman whispered, "She must be a celebrity or something," while a young couple tried to suppress laughter. A woman sitting in the next row leaned toward a flight attendant and said, "Can you check if she's really supposed to be here?" The attendant walked over moments later, bending slightly and asking Alicia to show her ticket again. Alicia calmly handed it over. Her eyes didn't blink. Her posture didn't change. When the attendant walked away still unsure, Alicia pulled out her phone and typed a message. She wasn't angry. She was calculating. These people saw her outfit, her skin, her confidence, and assumed she didn't belong. What they didn't know was that she had authored half the flight's cybersecurity policies and had more access to the executive board than anyone else on that plane. And when she made that one call, everything would shift. Alicia Daniels had never been the kind of woman the world expected in first-class cabins or boardroom podiums. Born and raised in a quiet southern town, she grew up hearing limits disguised as advice. Teachers told her to aim realistic. Neighbors said, "Girls like you stay local." And even distant relatives whispered, "First class isn't for our kind." But Alicia refused to shrink. She was brilliant with machines, determined in her studies, and unafraid to walk alone if it meant walking forward. At 18, she enlisted in the Air Force, rising quickly through the ranks and earning several medals for her intelligence work. When she transitioned to civilian life, she pursued cybersecurity, a male-dominated field where she was often the only woman in the room and almost always the only black one. She didn't let it break her. If anything, it made her better, quieter, sharper, stronger. Now 43, Alicia leads a global cyber defense division for one of the largest aviation tech firms in the world. She speaks at international summits, advises defense committees, and trains private executives on threat detection systems. She is, quite literally, the mind behind many of the systems that keep airplanes in the air and data protected. But even with all this, Alicia is not immune to the stares, the questioning, the silent exclusions. She still gets asked, "Are you with someone?" Or, "Can I help you find your seat?" when she's already holding a first-class ticket. On this day, she's headed to New York to speak at a global tech security summit, a keynote speaker with decades of experience behind her. She's not just boarding a plane, she's carrying generations of dignity, of struggle, and of excellence with her. And when the disrespect begins, she will answer, not with rage, but with power. Alicia Daniels moved with quiet confidence as she approached the boarding gate. Her outfit, a deep blue African print blazer trimmed in gold, stood out sharply against the sea of bland suits and airport athleisure. Her gold-rimmed glasses caught the light every time she turned her head, and her boots clicked with purpose against the marble floor. She wasn't trying to blend in. That had never been her goal. As she rolled her luggage past the waiting area, she felt the weight of eyes on her. It wasn't curiosity, it was judgment masked as amusement. A young couple sitting near the gate elbowed each other. The woman smirked. "Are they doing giveaways now?" she said just loud enough for Alicia to hear. The man snorted in response. The gate agent barely looked up at first. Then she glanced at Alicia's boarding pass. Her expression flickered. Surprise, maybe confusion. Then came the practiced smile. "Oh, seat 1A, right this way." Alicia nodded once and walked past without a word. Inside the plane, first class was only half full. Plush leather seats, wide aisles, and crystal clear lighting. As she made her way to the front, heads turned. A man in a navy suit tapped his fingers on the armrest, watching her closely. A woman adjusting her pearls gave Alicia a once-over and leaned toward the attendant. "Is she sure she's in the right place?" the woman whispered. Alicia heard it. She always did. She took her seat, 1A by the window. She placed her backpack under the seat and adjusted the lapel of her blazer. She pulled out her book and ignored the stares. James Baldwin, a classic. She liked the quiet power of reading black literature in rooms that weren't built to hold it. Minutes later, the same attendant returned, bending slightly. "Ma'am, could I see your boarding pass again? Just to double check." Alicia looked up calmly. "Again?" "Yes, please. There's been a request." Without a word, Alicia handed her the pass. It was crisp, digital, and unambiguous. Alicia Daniels, first class, seat 1A. The attendant nodded quickly, mumbling something about protocol, and walked away. Alicia returned to her book. The air around her buzzed with discomfort. Another man leaned across the aisle and asked, "Are you a celebrity or something?" Alicia didn't look up. Number just someone who paid for her seat. A murmur of laughter came from a few rows back. Someone muttered, "She's probably someone's assistant." Then another woman, this one wearing a Chanel scarf and too much perfume, tapped her call button and motioned for the supervisor. Moments later, the supervisor, a tall man with a clipped accent and a clipboard, approached. "Excuse me, ma'am. I hate to ask, but may I see your boarding pass again? There's been some confusion about seating arrangements." Alicia folded her book calmly, set it in her lap, and pulled out her phone. As she handed over the boarding pass for the third time, she asked, "What kind of confusion?" The supervisor didn't answer directly. "Just standard verification." "Is it?" The air was tight now. Tension curled between the leather seats and champagne flutes. A few passengers shifted uncomfortably. The supervisor handed the pass back with a forced nod and walked away. Alicia unlocked her phone. She had no intention of arguing. She knew better. In rooms like this, you don't raise your voice. You raise the stakes. And with one text, one call, she was about to remind everyone on that plane exactly who she was. As Alicia made her way down the aisle toward the front of the cabin, the reactions were almost synchronized. Subtle glances over newspapers, awkward pauses in conversation, the tightening of lips. She felt every gaze, not out of paranoia, but because she'd lived this moment before. Different city, different flight, same story. A man in a tailored business suit nudged his wife. He didn't whisper. "She must be someone's assistant," he said casually, as if Alicia couldn't hear him, or didn't matter. The wife chuckled without looking. "Or on standby. That explains the backpack." Another passenger, a blonde woman in her 50s, with red lipstick too bright for the hour, scoffed as Alicia passed. "She looks like she's trying to make a statement." Alicia didn't pause. She wasn't here to explain her presence. She was here to arrive. She reached seat 1A, gently placed her carry-on beneath her seat, and sat down with quiet poise. The scent of her shea butter and the boldness of her wardrobe made her presence undeniable. She didn't shrink. She never had. From her bag, she pulled out a worn copy of The Fire Next Time by James Baldwin. The pages had softened from years of reading, but the words inside were sharper than ever. She opened it, letting the weight of history rest on her lap. A flight attendant passed by slowly, glancing at her like she was an anomaly. She paused, then leaned down, her voice overly polite but clearly uncomfortable. "Ma'am, are you sure you're in the right seat?" Alicia didn't even blink. She closed her book gently, looked up, and locked eyes with the woman. "Are you?" she asked. The attendant's mouth opened slightly, then closed. Her face flushed a faint pink as she straightened, muttered something unintelligible, and quickly moved on. Alicia returned to her book as though nothing had happened. Because to her it hadn't. This wasn't new. This wasn't surprising. This was just another day in a world that still hadn't figured out how to sit quietly in the presence of power it didn't expect. The tension had thickened, woven into the silence that followed Alicia's sharp response to the flight attendant. She could feel it, like a pressure behind the eyes, the kind that builds before a storm. But she didn't shift. didn't sigh, didn't shrink. She simply turned another page in her book, her expression unreadable. 5 minutes passed. Then came the footsteps, measured, heavy. The flight supervisor appeared at the front of the cabin, tall, pressed uniform, clipboard in hand, and a look that attempted to appear neutral but failed miserably. He scanned the rows and walked directly toward Alicia. "Good evening, ma'am," he began, voice taut. "I'm sorry to disturb you, but I've received a report regarding seating confusion." Alicia didn't look up immediately. She placed her bookmark between the pages, closed the book with grace, and met his eyes. "Seating confusion," she repeated. "Is that what we're calling it?" He cleared his throat. "Would you mind showing me your boarding pass?" She handed it over. Again, he inspected it longer than necessary. "Seat 1A, he murmured. "I just have to verify with the system." Alicia leaned back slightly, still composed. "What exactly are you verifying? That my name matches the ticket? That this ticket actually exists? Or that someone who looks like me could possibly afford to sit here?" He hesitated. There was a shuffling in the row behind her, then a voice, loud, male, and smug. "Why don't you just let her sit in coach if it's such a big deal?" A few people laughed under their breath. Someone 2 rows back pulled out their phone and began filming, holding it just below eye level, as if secrecy was possible in such a small space. Alicia turned her head slightly in their direction, then back to the supervisor. "No need," she said quietly. "I'll handle it myself." She reached into her pocket, unlocked her phone, and opened her messages. Her fingers moved fast, controlled. She didn't yell, didn't threaten. She didn't need to, because while they were busy questioning if she belonged, they forgot to ask who she was. She hit send, and just like that, everything began to shift, not with volume, but with power. The engines hummed faintly beneath the plane, but it still hadn't moved. The flight was stalled. The whispers had turned to silence, the kind that feels like it's holding its breath. Alicia sat calmly, her phone pressed to her ear. She spoke with the same cool composure she used in boardrooms, in debriefings and during classified briefings. No panic, no anger, just precision. "Hi, Director Singh. I'm currently on flight 947, first class, seat 1A. There's some confusion about whether I belong here." There was a pause. She could almost hear Singh sitting up straight on the other end. "Yes, the same airline that just contracted us to run their global cybersecurity audit." The nearby passengers, those who had been laughing, scoffing, questioning, now shifted uncomfortably. Someone slowly lowered their phone, realizing they might be capturing something far bigger than they intended. Alicia's voice remained calm, but there was iron underneath every word. "Please remind the CEO that their keynote speaker and lead auditor is currently being interrogated mid-boarding for daring to sit where she paid to be." More silence. She didn't need to say much more. She ended the call with a line that cut through the cabin like a knife. "I'll stay seated until someone remembers who built their firewall." She slid the phone back into her bag and opened her book again. Unbothered, focused. Less than 2 minutes later, the supervisor reappeared. The stiffness was gone. He was pale, almost sweating. "Ms. Daniels," he started, voice shaking slightly. "We deeply apologize. This was a misunderstanding. Please forgive the delay." He cleared his throat. "Would you like something to drink while we prepare for takeoff?" Alicia didn't look up right away. She finished her paragraph. Then she set the book down gently in her lap and looked him in the eye. "Water will be fine," she said with a slight smile. "I like to keep my mind clear when people get exposed." It didn't take long for the storm to begin. Within hours of landing, the quietly filmed video of Alicia's encounter in first class hit social media. A simple caption accompanied the clip. "Black woman humiliated in first class, then reveals she runs Airline's cyber defense." The footage showed her calm response, her powerful phone call, and the stunned reaction of the staff. It went viral overnight. News outlets picked it up. Hashtags trended. Comment sections exploded with support. Some called her a hero, others a quiet revolution. Inside the airline's headquarters, chaos ensued. Internal emails flew back and forth. Emergency meetings were held. The CEO was informed, by Alicia's own contact at the Pentagon, that their lead cybersecurity consultant had been disrespected mid-flight. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The very woman protecting the airline's digital systems had been treated like a trespasser in their premium cabin. The CEO called Alicia directly. He apologized, profusely. The employees involved were suspended pending a formal investigation, but Alicia didn't ask for revenge. She asked for change. "I don't need anyone fired," she said, "but I do need you to acknowledge that what happened isn't an isolated event. It's systemic. So fix it." She recommended an anti-bias and equity training program for all airline staff. She even offered to connect them with experts who could lead it. Days later, Alicia stood at the podium of a packed NYC ballroom delivering her keynote speech. She looked radiant in her emerald green suit, the same confident poise she held on that plane now magnified tenfold. "People often ask what it's like to walk into a room where no one expects you to lead," she began. "Let me tell you, sometimes you don't walk. You sit, you wait, and then you own the space." Her words brought the crowd to its feet. Inspired by the moment, the airline established a scholarship fund in her name, the Alicia Daniels First Class Initiative. It would award grants to young Black women pursuing careers in aviation, tech, and cybersecurity. Alicia didn't just reclaim her seat, she built more for others. Alicia stepped onto her next flight with quiet confidence. The same gold-rimmed glasses, the same poise. But this time, the energy had changed. A flight attendant greeted her with a warm smile and called her by name. Passengers nodded respectfully as she walked past. There were no whispers, no sideways glances, only recognition. She took her seat. Window again. Peaceful again. She didn't need to make a call this time. Her presence was the message now. Voiceover. "They laughed when I took my seat. But when you've built the foundation they stand on, you don't ask for space, you command it."